Uncle Ron and stuff. This is about the fifth time I've tried to redo. This is going to be about money and why you need to know about it. Uh, I did a version of this, and then the more I thought about it, it has to be broken up into sections, and each one talked about separately. But this one is about you having to know about money. Well, you go, well, I know about money. Everybody knows about money. You work, you have a pension, you get Social Security, whatever it is. You got income, and then you spend it. What is there to know, right? All kind of stuff. What are you spending it on? Are you spending more than you're getting in? What are you spending it on? Are you relying on credit card for debt? Are you spending too much money using a credit card for all of your whims, your wants, and long term loans, debt, house mortgages, car loans, investments? You got some extra money, you inherit some money. What do you do with it? Where do you put it? How do you make money work for you? All these things are related to money. How do you manage money? And of all the things that you should know about, this is one of the big ones. And they don't talk about it much in high school. It's a do-it-yourself thing. And you stumble and you fall and you get up and you learn some. And anyway, I'm going to try to convey some of the things that I've had to learn about money, and I'll do it in a sequence of events. I've got the spending portion, I think, under control, but I'm back on this. Various situations. Maybe give you an example about knowing about money is I've been involved with people who they had a change in situation in their life. One comes to mind, got divorced. The lady, and it's common in a lot of families, one person pays bills. They know what the bills are, they know when they have to be paid, and they take care of it. Well, the spouse or the children and the children or anybody else that's in the house don't know anything about those things. So when a divorce occurs, here's this lady, she doesn't know anything about what have an idea how much water costs or electricity or fuel oil, natural gas, car repairs. It's all been taken care of, and now she doesn't know any of that stuff. Another example I thought was real good. I was merit badge counselor for the Boy Scouts for a while. With one of the merit badges was called money or finance or home, something like that, and it was a real good sort of basic understanding of about money. And it was what was interesting to me when I was talking to the scout. I said, "You plan on going to college?" Yeah. Have you talked to your parents about how much money they've saved for college? No. Have they ever told you that they've saved money for college? No. Um, there are talks you should have with the children about money. One of the things children don't know about money except whatever you give them. I had a case recently where I was with one of my with my grandchildren, and one of them said he wanted to buy something, and I said, "Okay, I'll take you to the store." And he said, "Well, I'm a little short." So, okay. And it was this long silence. And then it occurred to me, he was basically asking a roundabout way, will you make up the difference? So I said, if you're short, I'll lend you the money, but you have to pay me back. Well, that was not what he expected. And I think I've done this before with some of the grandchildren. When they literally expect you to make up the difference, now, I guess they do because their parents have done it in the past. But in this case, I was going to introduce them to the whole concept of borrowing money and that you have to pay it back. It's really disturbing. I don't know how else to put it, and even makes me agitated or angry about the whole student loan debt thing. The people take out, they sign papers, and I'll talk about the whole signing papers later about debt. They sign papers, borrowed money, and used it to go to school. And the whole idea, of course, was that that was gonna set them up. They would have a degree in a field that provided high salaries or incomes, and they were going to pay the debt back, and no big deal. And then all of a sudden, they either don't graduate or they do, but the market forces, the economy goes bad. We got too many of these and not enough of those. They selected a field that was not popular anymore or hot in the market. They didn't graduate as a chemical engineer with emphasis on organic chemistry, i.e. oil. They didn't do that, so they did something else. And now they got this debt, and, they got to pay it back. I thought maybe you'd make up the difference somehow. I don't know. Debt forgiveness is a bad idea. It creates a mindset. If you sign up for debt, you pay it back. End of story. Anyway, that's one of the things you got to learn about money. And one of the first things I was going to talk about, and it'll be the next episode, is getting a handle on your spending. You know in general how much you get in a month. If you have a salary, you do, and you might have promotions or cost of living increase or annual reviews or something like that, and it will change from year to year, or you change jobs and get more money and so on. But underneath of the income part is all of the spending. And there's lots and lots of mandatory spendings for utilities, food. I can think of it as shelter, food, heat, cool. Basic stuff. You either got to go gather your own food up or you got to pay somebody for it. You either have to live in a tent in a park someplace, and or you have to live in an apartment or a house and you got to pay rent or you have to pay a mortgage. And if you need water, you can go to a public drinking fountain, but you usually have to pay for water. And all the other utilities that are responsible. Those are mandatories, and I doubt most people have a list. They sort of know it in their head. I get electronic mails now. I don't get paper bills anymore. They're all electronic. And they come in each month, and sometimes they get put in the spam folder, or I never receive it. I don't know what happens. And I will miss one. And then the next bill, I'll go in there, but I haven't paid the last one. How'd that happen? You know? Anyway, you've got an idea of what you're spending on. But I doubt you know how much gasoline you bought last year, how many dollars worth of gasoline you spent. I doubt you have a good handle on how much your car repairs were, or how many times, what'd you spend on eating out, or vacations. Do you know how much you spent on all those things? Probably not. And the deal is that you really do need to compile a list of all of your expenses. Now, the lady that had gotten divorced and didn't have a clue, I sat down with her and I told her I'm going to make up a spreadsheet of your income and then all the expenses that you know about. And so we started through that, and she rummaged and found bills, and she had natural gas and blah 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 blah. And I said, okay, is there anything else? I mean, no. I said, you ever go to the beauty parlor? I go, yeah, I go every month. I get my hair cut. I said, what's that cost? She said, $150. Okay, we need to put that in here because you're spending that. And I said, is there anything else like that? No. And I was looking at her nails all painted. I said, do you paint your own? She said, no, I go to the nail salon. Okay, well, how much you spend on that? Well, that's $50 every visit. Okay, or you go twice a month? Yeah, I try to go every week. But put that in. Anyway, you see what I'm getting at. I want to classify it as mandatory spending. You have no way of getting around it. Federal government sets up a budget. They get allocated so much money for all their operations, and that's kind of what you do, and then you get income from whatever sources. And then you have mandatory spending, the apartment rent, the utilities, insurances, taxes of all kinds, the automobile maintenance, gasoline. I can go on and on and on and on about mandatory spending, but you know those better than I do, and I'm just saying make a list of them so you know what you're actually spending on, and then you can get some idea of where you stand financially. That is, what's your income versus what you're spending. And what happens, and where people get into trouble, is that they spend more than they get in, and they make up the difference by borrowing it, and they make up the difference by borrowing off of a credit card with a very high interest rate. And paying interest is the pits. You don't want to be doing that. What did you get for that? Somebody said, okay, well, I'll trust you. That's what you got. Trust. Okay, I'll lend you this money and you're going to pay me back. And for the fact that I trusted you and gave you $2,000, you're going to pay me back $2,000 plus 23% annually on that money. And if people do that all the time, some people have 6, 7 credit cards. Okay, it's not uncommon. I think the average credit card debt for every American like $12,000. If you have a credit card because you can't make your monthly mandatories like food, and utilities and rent and mortgage, then you got to do something about it. And that's what making a list of expenditures is going to do. If you got a credit card payment, that's a mandatory thing. You got to include that in there. If you have a student loan, you got to include that in there. If you have a car payment, you got to include that in there. All these sorts of things on spending. And then you can get a handle on, okay, this is what I have to spend each month, and this is what I'm getting an income. And if you're going in the hole, you have to do something. And you're only going to know if you make a list and try to get a handle on your money. Understanding money. What you got in, what are you spending it on? Are you spending too much? Probably. Most people do. But the only way to do that is to start understanding what you're spending on and understand you don't get jack out of paying interest to somebody else for a credit card. What value did you get out of it? You might as well, you borrow $2,000, you have to pay back, you pay back $3,000 over 3 years. What'd you get for that $1,000? Did you get any tangible asset? Did you get anything out of it? No, you didn't. You just, I don't know. I don't like I don't like credit cards, and I don't like paying high interest rates, and they're crazy amounts. I understand if you're in a situation where you're getting only this amount of income and you're struggling paying all your things, then you have to do something about it. What can you do? I've been in that situation where I did cut off cable. I went to a TV antenna, dropped the cable bill. That's a mandatory remote spending I don't need to do. I had to cut it. I've had to sell things I owned, things I bought. I had to sell them to pay off debt to reduce my monthly spending. I've done in the house, first thing I do when I own a home is insulate the crap out of it because I'm trying to reduce my monthly energy consumption. I'm not a fortune teller, but I'm willing to say that energy costs are always going to go up. Electricity, fuel oil, gasoline, any kind of energy is going to go up in price in the coming years. Solar energy is not going to make us abundant and everybody has free electricity. It's not going to happen. Okay. Food is going up in price. Okay. All those sorts of parameters come into play, and I lost my train of thought. That's why I'm fudging right now. If you're having trouble meeting all your obligations, having to borrow to do it, then you've got to take steps. As I said, I insulate the house to reduce my energy costs. It's a one-time. I have to pay out money for insulation, and I put it in. I try to understand my heating and cooling system and make them operate as efficiently as possible so I don't have to spend that money. Water, you put in water-saving toilets and shower heads and things like that. There are things you can do when you try to cut back on mandatory spending. Utilities is one area. You consolidate trips. This is not a big deal, but there are things you can do, like you don't just run out to the drugstore and then come home and go, now I got to go here. You combine all the trips in one trip and you save gasoline and time. There are things you can do. You have to think about it. Where are your major spending points and what can you do to reduce it in some way? On home mortgages, a thing that people do is when interest rates drop down low, they refinance their house at a lower interest rate. Sometimes they have to pay a couple points. If they have the money, they can do it, or they fold it into a new loan, and that saves them a monthly payment. Now, you have to remember when it's refinanced, it's probably back to 30 years again at a lower interest rate, but the money on a long-term loan like that over 30 years, if you borrowed $200,000, you're going to pay back $400,000 for the life of the loan. Okay, so there are things you can do. Refinance your house, sell your house, downsize. That's one of the things people do. You have to take actions. If your income is not meeting your mandatory spending and discretionary spending, going out to eat, taking vacations, buying a new TV, buying yourself a new computer, all these sorts of buy more now that you get every time you turn around, commercials for this and you need that, and medicine and drugs. I got another prognostication to make. I don't see healthcare expenses going down in the future. Big surprise, right? No, I don't care if health insurance is going to go up. Anything you can think of is going to go up. Will your salary or income go up? Maybe. You have to get a handle on what you're spending, what you make, and where you can cut things to make it work. Borrowing money to make it work is not a long-term solution. That's going to get you into trouble. You have to pay mandatories. They cut your water off. You have to pay your mortgage or your rent, or they evict you, or they take your house. So there's things you can do and you have to do, and if it means selling off your stuff to pay down that credit card debt, that's what you do. You go, well, I paid $100 for it. I couldn't sell it for more than 25. I'm sorry, I didn't get you in this situation. You're in that situation. You got to do what you got to do. Maybe take a second job. I don't know. There are plenty of stories about people working two jobs to make ends meet. You know, I hear all the time most people living paycheck to paycheck. I understand that, and that's highly possible. The only you got to try to cut something. You got to try to reduce some expenditure, something. Put yourself on a budget. What's a budget mean? It means you know what you're spending on what and how much income you have in. And you can't spend more than this amount or you go in a hole. That's a budget. I've used that term for the first time in this. Money, budget, spending. As I said, why do you need to know about money? The other issues, well, I'll talk about later, is credit card debt and when it's useful and when it hurts, and long-term debt and investment. If you have more money left over at the end of the month than you're spending, you don't need anything else, then you need to think about some way to invest it so it provides income where it works for you. The nice thing about money, if you have it invested, it works for you while you're sleeping. Each of these are different worlds. Investing is a complex, intricate world, and it does not simply mean buying silver because somebody said it's going to go up, or buying gold, or investing with Rob around the street who's giving money to subprime borrowers who can't get money from banks. So he has to borrow from him, and they're paying exorbitant interest rates, and therefore they turn around and give you giving you 10% on the money you lend him. It's too good to be true, and it'll bite you. I'll just introduce it now. It is really hard to make after-tax return on your investment of more than about 5, 6, 7%. Anything else over that, you got to look at it really closely. This is just an in general thing. If it's too good to be true, it probably isn't true. Okay? Investment tip. It's hard after taxes, and you have no idea. You've never calculated, and you don't know. You invested this money. I'm getting a whole bunch of money in, but you didn't take into account that you've been having to pay income tax, state, federal, local, blah, 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 on that investment. Money management, budgeting, credit card or use of temporary debt, long-term debt, and investment. And then there's a whole other thing about insurances and money, It's a whole other world over there. Anyway, this has gone on too long. I'm gonna post this one, and this will be not part number 1 about money and just an overview of what I am going to do.